Hi everyone, welcome back to Visually Hidden Selects. I'm Peter O'Brien, and today I would like to talk to you about Superman from 1978, directed by Richard Donner. This film is of course based on the Superman comic series. It was written by Mario Puzo, who wrote the Godfather novel and films. He did the original story for this film and the sequel, Superman 2, but other writers were then brought in to adjust things and tweak the dialogue. So there are actually 4 credited screenwriters on this film, in addition to a creative consultant named Tom Mankiewicz, who actually worked very closely with director Richard Donner to fine-tune the script as they were filming it and adjust the story. Unfortunately, the Writers Guild did not see fit to give him a writing credit, which is why he appears in the credits as a creative consultant. The Writers Guild was not happy about that either. This film was produced by Alexander and Ilya Salkind, a father and son producing team. They had most recently up to this point done The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers, and their approach to that film was shooting both of them simultaneously. They found that if they could shoot 2 movies during the production cycle of one movie, they would be able to basically save half of their production budget and get 2 for the price of 1. They employed that same tactic when it came time to shoot Superman. They wanted to do Superman and Superman 2 simultaneously and then release them a year apart to double down on their box office return. It was actually Ilya Salkind, the son, who saw the potential in the character of Superman as a film property. He basically did a lot of research and looked at who is the most recognizable character around the globe. And aside from Mickey Mouse, Superman was number 2. And so he felt that if he could produce a film about Superman, it would be successful no matter what. In their pursuit to acquire the top talent of the day, of course they hired John Williams to compose the score. His opening theme for this film is so iconic, it is only rivaled by his other themes for films like Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. It really is a standout composition that has been elevated to the status of Superman. The other thing that I particularly like about this score is that it is not a Steven Spielberg film, and it is not a George Lucas related film. It is a Richard Donner film, and it just has that John Williams touch that brings it up to another level. There were a number of actors who were up for the part of Superman. Initially, they were thinking about having a name, and so they were throwing around ideas like James Caan, Dustin Hoffman, Clint Eastwood, even Arnold Schwarzenegger campaigned hard for the film. And ultimately, I believe it was Richard Donner who suggested maybe casting an unknown in the part of Superman, but adding flavor with the supporting actors. And the Salkinds really bit into that idea. Marlon Brando, of course, as Jor-El, he was a fantastic choice. He does not disappoint on screen at all. And unfortunately, he knew that all too well, which was why he was able to demand such a high salary. And it's a great performance that he's reading off of cue cards because he didn't bother to memorize his lines. And Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, he's doing justice to the material, and he's almost injecting a larger-than-life persona into Lex Luthor, which of course he has. This film really rests on the shoulders of Christopher Reeve. While they were filming this movie, Richard Donner had a word that was basically the slogan for the production: verisimilitude, which basically means truthfulness, genuine, authentic. And that was not only in relation to the character of Superman, but in the portrayal of Superman. And that is what Christopher Reeve brought to this character, is a genuine sincerity. You can just see in his physical approach to the character when he's Clark Kent, when he's Superman. There's a difference in the way he carries himself. There's a difference in his tone of voice, his body language. He is basically playing 2 different characters. And there's one scene in particular, it's actually one shot, that really ties the whole film and essence of the character together. Right after Superman takes Lois Lane on her flight around Manhattan Island, He drops her off on her balcony, and there's a shot of him taking off. Lois walks back into her apartment, and there's a knock at the door. And this is all one shot. And the knock on the door is, of course, Clark Kent, who we just saw take off from the balcony. They actually set up a rear screen projector and shot Christopher Reeve as Superman taking off from the balcony, and then had Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent just waiting on the other side of the door for his cue to knock. And that's part of the magic of filmmaking and part of the magic that this movie brings to life through the character. And once he's through the door, he steps in as Clark Kent and he takes off his glasses, and you can just see his body change before your eyes. The character of Superman comes out, and it's just a phenomenal physical transformation that you really only get from a confident actor, an established actor, and a stage actor who has to do all of this stuff without the benefit of special effects and camera work. Not everybody could have played Clark Kent or Superman. Some actors may have had the physical prowess, some actors may have had the dramatic prowess, but to have both really is a unique quality that I think they were lucky to find in Christopher Reeve. Comic books are really the final attempt at establishing an American mythology. Our history does not go back to ancient times, and so this is really where we get a sense of our ideas and our morals that are related to us as a people. And Superman really represents the best of us. He stands for truth, justice, and the American way. That is really the cornerstone of the character. And the character itself is the cornerstone of contemporary superheroes, not only in terms of comic books, but in terms of cinema. This film is the foundation of the superhero genre as we know it. Prior to this film, there were not a lot of attempts at superheroes on the screen. They were kiddie stuff. They weren't serious business. Subsequently, this film led to a franchise that spanned 4 films. Even at that point, he was really the only game in town as far as superhero films go. While you're watching it, there's a playful innocence that is present throughout this film. It really does a terrific job of bringing that perceived comic book world to life on the screen. And this film really utilizes every trick in the book that was available up until that point. This is pre-CGI, and one of the taglines for the film was, "You will believe a man can fly." And upon watching this film, there are a number of shots you can't see the wires, and they were not digitally erased. It was really just the technical ingenuity of the photography and the effects team that achieved the results required to make this film believable. And the suspension of disbelief that has to go on for an audience to believe that a man can fly, once you accept that, everything else in the film just falls into line. Because again, it's establishing that idea that's being carried forward from the comic book pages. In the tradition of all great epics, this film takes its time in telling the story it sets out to tell. And that pacing is fine because once we get to Superman 2, we hit the ground running. Everything that needs to be covered to establish this character for the audience in a cinematic presentation is achieved in the beginning of this film. And that was part of the plan when they set out to make these 2 films simultaneously. They actually paused the production of Superman 2 in order to complete this film for its release. When they resumed filming Superman 2, the director, Richard Donner, had a falling out with the producers, Ilya Salkind, Pierre Spengler, and Alexander Salkind, and he was not invited back to finish the filming of Superman 2. He had shot 75% of that film. He was really close to completing it, and they brought in Richard Lester to finish filming Superman 2. And so Richard Lester had to shoot 51% of Superman 2 in order to get his directing credit on that film. In 2006, thanks in part to fan petitioning, they actually went back to the archives and allowed Richard Donner to assemble a Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. It is a very different film, and in my opinion, even though it is not complete, it is a superior film, and you can see the direction it was going, and it's just unfortunate that it did not get there. So that's it for Superman. Again, this film is really ground zero for all contemporary superhero films. It is definitely worth checking out, and we will be discussing it at length along with the other films during the Visually Hidden podcast next week, so be sure to tune in for that. Until next time, see ya.